We come now to questions for oral answer, and the first question is in the name of the Honourable Clayton Cosgrove.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Finance and asks, does he stand by his statement regarding the estimated proceeds of asset sales that, quote, "I just want to emphasise that it is not our best guess, it's just a guess," unquote?
Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, yes, I think the member is referring to a discussion over Treasury estimates required by law of the proceeds of the government share offer program, where they picked the midpoint in a range of $5 to $7 billion. And they picked that midpoint simply because it was the midpoint, and that's what I was referring to. It wasn't possible then to be more precise because there were so many variables. For instance, how much of the companies would be sold, how much people would be willing to pay for them, and potentially variable market conditions several years ahead of when that estimate was made.
Supplementary question, Honourable Clayton Cosgrove.
Then to the Minister, why is he still using his quote, yes, unquote, of $5 to $7 billion to be raised from asset sales, as noted in the Budget 2013, given that since the estimate or his guess was made, his government has driven solid energy into the ground, rendering it unfit for sale, and many analysts say that the value of Meridian could be up to $2 billion less than it was a couple of years ago when he made his guess?
Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr Speaker, a couple of years ago there was an estimate made of $5 to $7 billion. And as I pointed out before, the reason for that range was the unpredictability of the interest of market interest in the shares, well, commercial risk to the companies, because since that time, for instance, there is now a clear understanding that electricity demand in New Zealand has stopped rising and may well be falling at a time when the supply of generation is growing. So that is why we have stuck with that estimate. If and when there is better information, then Treasury will be required by statute to take that information into account in the half-year update due in December.
Supplementary question, Honourable Clayton Cosgrove.
Given that by his own admission he is guessing how much money will be raised from asset sales, and given that 2 weeks ago he said he didn't know how much it would cost to sell Meridian assets through the Buy Now, Pay Later scheme, does he understand why 86% of the public has absolutely no interest in purchasing Meridian Energy shares?
Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr Speaker, I simply disagree with the member's assertions. One thing we do know is that when we sold Mighty River Power, the proceeds to the Crown were $1.7 billion. That money is now safely in the Crown bank account, and the government is pursuing its plans to invest that cash in other public assets. And the government does not apologise for banking significant proceeds from the sale of these companies. And if the member disagrees with the policy, he should promise to buy them back. The money's in the bank, he can promise to buy the shares back.
Supplementary question, Honourable Clayton Cosgrove.
Does he agree, to the Minister, does he agree with the Prime Minister that the asset sales petition of 327,224 signatures, as certified by the Clerk of the House today, is, quote, dodgy, unquote, and has been, quote, signed by children and tourists, unquote? If so, why does he think attacking the democratic rights and integrity of 327,000+ New Zealanders is acceptable or appropriate for him and his government?
Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, I think the Prime Minister was attacking the reliability of the Greens' signature gathering process, which was financed by taxpayers' money. In terms of democratic rights, this government showed full respect for New Zealanders' democratic rights by campaigning all election year in 2011 on this policy, and we have followed that policy precisely. And as the Leader of the Opposition at the time said, the 2011 election was a referendum on asset sales, this government was elected and we proceeded with the policy.
Supplementary question, Honourable Clayton Cosgrove.
Will his government accept the Labor Party's offer to hold the asset sales referendum alongside the next general election, thereby substantially reducing the cost, with one condition, that he immediately halt the asset sales program?
Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, it's not untypical of the Labor Party to offer something that's not within their power. Their leaders are doing it all over, their potential leaders are doing it all over the country right now. I understand the Greens want the referendum petition acted on much more quickly than that, and I suggest the Greens and Labor try and sort out just when they do want that referendum to happen.
Supplementary question, Honourable Clayton Cosgrove.
Why has his government criticised the estimated $9 million cost of the referendum, which amounts to roughly 6% of the $150 million he and his government has spent on asset sales to date, including such items as brokerage fees, advertising, consultancy costs, bonus shares, legal aid, court costs, interest-free loans to investors and increased directors' fees and CEO salaries? Or is it because, once the referendum votes are counted, he and his government will have lost any moral authority they believed they had in respect of the sale of state-owned assets?
Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, no, we don't agree with that. The government's moral authority to move on with the asset sales hinged on the fact that even the opposition said that the 2011 election was a referendum on asset sales. We outlined our policies in detail, campaigned on them transparently. It was the dominant issue of that election campaign, and we have proceeded with the sales. At the end of the sales process, tens of thousands of New Zealanders will have had the opportunity to invest in quality assets. The government will have billions of dollars less debt, and we will have better performing companies as a result of it.
Point of order, Honourable Trevor Mallard.
Mr Speaker, I'd like to refer you and question number 2 to Standing Order 3771B and ask you to rule that the tail part of this question is an argument or an expression of opinion and therefore should not be allowed.
Order. I thank the member for his point. The question has been accepted. The question was authenticated at the time that it was accepted. I will be watching carefully the answers that flow from the question to make sure that the Minister responds in a way for which he has ministerial responsibility. Point of order.
Mr Speaker, given that ruling, I'd now like to refer you to 3771A and ask you, as you've ruled this as authenticated and therefore a statement of fact, ask you whether in fact it is necessary in order to render the question intelligible, and ask you to rule, sir, that it is certainly not.
Well, I have ruled that the question is in order. The member can refer to any number of standing orders that he wants to. The question has been authenticated. The question has been accepted. The question is therefore ruled in order. I will wait now carefully listening to the answers. Question number 2, Jamie Lee Ross.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My